Grimpy from Cleveland, Ohio, and you're listening to Barbecue Central.
Start the game! Let's go!
We'll do it live. Okay. Well, do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the lighter fluid on, strike the match, and... Oh! Should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
Good evening and welcome to the Really Big Barbecue Central Show. This is the show that talks about all things important to the world of barbecue and grilling. This show is originating from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city, Bomb City, USA, Cleveland, Ohio, the barbecue capital of the North Coast. I'm your program host, Greg Grimpy. Happy to have you aboard here on your Tuesday evenings live fire fun and frivolity show. If you would like to get in contact with the show this evening, or better yet, follow the show during off-show hours, here's how you do all that.
You can get in touch with the show by sending an email to Greg at bbqcentralshow.com. Follow us on all the social media channels at BBQ Central Show. And be sure to subscribe to the show podcast feed on your favorite podcast platform.
Anything else you want to find out about the show can be found at the main website, thebbqcentralshow.com. And here's what's happening in case you get the newsletter. Coming up in about 12 minutes from now, one of the most recognizable faces and names in the live fire industry, especially barbecue and Texas barbecue, our pal Aaron Franklin from Franklin BBQ will join us. A number of other things. I just learned something about Aaron an hour ago. Blew my mind. I don't think he's even down to talk about it. Doesn't want to promote it. Started asking him questions, follow-up question after follow-up question. He's like, blew my mind, let's just say it in that way. And I don't think I can bring it up. But if you ask me about it after the show, I might be able to tell you. So Aaron Franklin for one segment. And then we will be joined 35 past the first hour off of a little bit of a layoff. Our Barbecue Central Show's official fast food review expert, our pal Bill Oakley, will stop by. Play a little catch-up there. He's got a barbecue event that's going on in October that he'd like to start promoting. So stay tuned for Bill Oakley. That'll bring a close to the first hour. We move to the second hour. I had somebody scheduled. They weren't able to meet their time commitment, so I am backfilling with the longest-running embedded correspondent, that being from Texas, and the guy who was in the midst of a little bit of a meteoric rise in popularity. So we're going to keep tracking it. Last one was in March. Doug Scheiding, Rogue Cookers. We'll see how that goes. I have an open segment planned as well with a couple hot takes and other things to get you updated on. So we'll see how Doug's segment goes and what time we have left to fill. I have some things to give away. Not the least of which might be the Oh Mommy that Matt Osmond gave me month ago or whatever it was. Tried it on steaks for the first time over the weekend. Winner, omame on my steak for dinner. It was really good. So thanks to Matt once again. Trying it on a number of things. So that's how the show's laying out. Aaron Franklin, Bill Oakley, first hour. Big first hour. And then Doug Scheiding in the second hour. Big second hour as well. Don't forget you can follow me socially, Instagram, the Tweeter, TikTok, Snapper Snaps, and the LinkedIns, all with the handle at BBQ Central Show. We say good evening to those of you watching through one of our video streaming platforms. You can go to facebook.com/BBQ Central Show or the twitters.com BBQ Central Show, or you can also watch on the YouTubes, which is youtube.com/@BBQ Central Show, where we have a new YouTube poll question of the week. And we're asking everybody this because it was such a hot one last week during the embedded correspondence. I'm asking you, do you remove the membrane on spare ribs? And currently 94% of you are saying yes, you do. 6% of you are saying no, you don't. So a lot of us are spending the time to remove the membrane off of the spare ribs. By the way, as I had just mentioned, the umami rub, taste tester Steve was in, of course, Maddie's boyfriend. He said, yeah, those steaks turned out great, 100%. Very happy with the way they turned out. And I didn't go full on, everybody's going to taste it whether they want to or not. I know Steve, tad bit of an adventurous eater when it comes to the spices and the seasonings. Gals, a little bit more, I know what I like. So I did one side with umami, put them in the sous vides, did them like that. So Steve and I got to enjoy some of that. He said they were good, as he just talked about there in the instant chat. So always appreciate Steve's palate when he stops by the house for some eats. Results from the poll question of last week. Joe Martinez is really Martin Martinez. Very close. 56% of you think indeed Joe Martinez is Martin Martinez. And we'll start here tonight. So first, I do want to thank a gal by the name of Mara Morrison. Perhaps it's Mara Morrison, from a local from a local newspaper called the News Herald, for the big article write-up in the special edition of the newspaper entitled Ready, Set, Grill. Most of the supplement was done with other reporters interviewing barbecue restaurant owners for some barbecue advice and tips and tricks. And around here, that's questionable information for the most part. So this reporter decided to go with a suggestion that one of the mayors in the next city over gave her, my pal Joe Sakis from the great city of Wickliffe, Ohio. He said, forget about that. You should interview a guy that has his own barbecue and grilling show and podcast. That being me. She bought into his pitch, and away we went. We met up, I don't know, July 3rd or 5th or whatever it was, did the whole hour-long meeting. Nothing new to the fans of the show. How I got started in barbecue, how I grew the online presence when I started the show, both in podcast and live format, how it's grown and evolved over its life, all that kind of info. I don't think you can actually go anywhere on the newspaper's website and find it. They require you to jump through a paywall or two. Also, and shockingly, it wasn't on stands for sale on Sunday. You actually have to subscribe to the newspaper, and then in addition to the Sunday newspaper showing up, there was an additional supplement called Ready, Set, Grill, but you have to be a paying subscriber in order to get it. So I want to thank Mara Morrison once again for the opportunity. A couple editor's notes here. And I don't want to come off like a shithead, but I will. However, I do want to make a few corrections in her story. First and foremost, please, first and foremost. In the secondary headline, it reads, and I quote, Willoughby residents, the Barbecue Central show gets 200 to 300,000 live views each week. Gang, this is 100% false. It doesn't get anywhere near that many live views each week. I wish it did. At most, depending on the guest and what Tuesday, and if the Olympics are on, and if you have to take a dump, maybe 2,000 to 3,000. But usually it's 1,000 or less during the live show. There have been times when I've seen it peak to 10 or 12,000, normally 1,000. There was also some competing information on the amount of audio downloads the shows gets. One part of the article says 20 to 30,000, but no time frame given on when those numbers or how those numbers are collected. Doesn't matter. Those were wrong too. The monthly audio download average around 40,000 a month at the current time. That is correct. I have verifiable proof of that. And look, if I'm being critical, and as I said, I am, the whole thing could have been a bit more well-written. She did mention that she was going to send me an advance copy to read through. That never happened. I could have corrected some of these things that I have been talking about over the last few minutes, but it never came. It just showed up on Sunday to people's doorsteps. Someone tagged my wife in a Facebook post and was like, hey, something's in the newspaper. My wife was like, well, where's our copy? I don't have any idea. I didn't even know it was coming out today. She said she was going to let me know. She said she was going to send me advanced copies. I've emailed her subsequently and said, is there any way I can get my hands on a couple paper copies? Haven't heard back from her. Don't know if she's decided after my interview that nothing is going to be better than that, so she's cut bait. But bad news for mom and dad, you're not getting a paper copy. I can't even get one. And they weren't on newsstands. The writing a little disjointed. All in all, if I'm being critical, because I do fancy myself a bit of a creative writer. I write a lot of the reads and a lot of takes and all this other stuff. Outside of that, though, always so grateful and so happy to get the show some extra exposure, which it deserves. Not me, the show. The show deserves all the credit, all the exposure. So we thank Mara Morrison from the local News Herald for giving me the feature and the Ready Set Grill, the special summer supplement that comes with the News Herald, and for also saying that I get 200 to 300,000 live views each week, which again is totally false. I don't even know where she came up with that number, and she recorded me. It is so false. I don't even want to be associated with that stat. I'm owning it. I'm telling you right now, I did not say that. And it's true. And if I said it, my mistake, I recant it. It's false. It's a made-up stat by somebody. And I don't think it was me, although I can't be 100% sure. But believe me when I tell you, I wish. But indeed, if I got 200 to 300,000 live views a week, I might be fourth or fifth just to Joe Rogan. I would be one of the top 10 or 15 podcasts of all time. It's not the case. But anyway, thank you, Mara, no matter what. Plus, great picture of me with the suit. I was headed into work, so she caught me in a good dress day. And no, you can't get your hands on any extra copies if you live here locally, because I couldn't get my hands on any copies Sunday when I was perusing through all the gas stations, pharmacies, and any place else that was open in the morning on Sunday. That's all right. Aaron Franklin is ready to go. Before we get to him, let's talk about the Members Mark Gas Grill, which you can find at your local Sam's Club store. Imagine a gas grill that offers precise set temperatures from a slow-cooking 225 to a sizzling 450 degrees. You have an oven. You have no plug-ins. You have no battery packs, nothing like this. Is this magic, is what you're asking? Indeed not. It's all in the gas valves. Think of it as your grilling genie. Effortless. Wow, it's a tough one tonight. Effortlessly sensing and regulating temperatures, just like your trusty oven. Set it and forget it. No plugins, no gadgets, no add-ons, just pure grilling freedom and joy. The game-changing oven mode, the traditional barbecue mode, and then you pick. And by the way, you're not locked into one or the other. You want to start in grilling mode and then finish in oven mode, or vice versa, you can do it. I suggest this. Go to your local Sam's Club store. Check out the Members Mark Pro Series. They have a 4-burner and a 5-burner. I have the 5-burner in the backyard. A sexy all stainless steel cooker. Huge amount of space. And if you're just a little unsure of your grilling skills and you would rather dial in a temperature and cook, you can do that. But you can also learn to become a little bit more intermediate to expert as well by using the regular grill mode. Best of both worlds. Come on, let's go. Sam's Club is where you get it, and it's the only place you can get it with its patented thermostatic control technology. We're back with our pal Aaron Franklin right after this. Stick around, we'll be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Broadcasting live from the Barbecue Central Show studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
Hey, welcome back. This portion of the show being brought to you by cookinpellets.com, your number one source for quality wood pellets for all your pellet-driven cookers. If you're ready to buy, don't go to cookinpellets.com. Instead, buy from Amazon.com or Walmart.com or Lowe's.com. Same great products as Cookin' Pellets sells, even better shipping rates as told to me by the owner of Cookin' Pellets. So don't worry about that either. Good folks over at cookinpellets.com. My first guest tonight, one of the most popular and recognizable faces in barbecue today. You've seen him on things like Barbecue Pitmasters TV show. He also has a barbecue masterclass over at the Masterclass website. Shot a barbecue show for PBS, authored books on barbecue and other topics. He is a 2020 Barbecue Hall of Famer, and most importantly, a 2018 Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer. We are, of course, talking about Aaron Franklin. Aaron, we have a YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking everybody watching through YouTube and all guests. Nobody better to ask. Nobody better ask than you on this question. Do you remove the membrane on spare ribs? Yes or no?
Absolutely not.
Wow, 96% of the YouTube voting public is saying yes. They, in fact, do remove the membrane on spare ribs. So
they might. I don't.
Let's ask a follow-up question to the YouTube poll question of the week. In the backyard, does Aaron remove the membrane on spare ribs?
Nope.
All right. So why not? I mean, there seems to be a large fascination with removing membranes on both the baby back and the spare ribs. I did a big eight rack of spare rib cook a week ago this past Saturday, and I was looking at them. I was like, holy shit, am I really going to remove the membrane on all 8 racks? And then 5 hours later, I was done. And I said, maybe I'm never going to do that. So I put it to the embedded correspondence last month, and now a guy who's both doing it in the backyard, but of course doing it commercially with Franklin BBQ. Why not?
Well, I said the same thing to myself a long, long time ago. And when you're in a restaurant and you get there at midnight to cook 50 to 72 racks of ribs, there is no way I'm spending that kind of time pulling off the membranes. And also kind of what I learned, I could talk for hours about this. I know we don't have a ton of time. But so and I don't really do baby backs. You know, we do full spares at Franklin, and I prefer spares for sure. Yep. But the flavors that I'm trying to get on the ribs totally penetrate that membrane. And I like to cook my ribs as almost overcooked as possible. And when you're taking something that close to the edge, it's nice to have that membrane intact to help the rack kind of hold together. Because otherwise, you got shiners, you got bones kind of poking out and stuff. And it just doesn't really matter. I've cooked them both ways so many times. And you know, if you're cooking ribs to full tenderness, I don't think it matters that much.
There is a large belief amongst live fire cooks that leaving the membrane on is some type of a flavor penetration inhibitor. Do you find that to be the case?
No, because the good smoke particles that you want, like from a clean fire, are water soluble, which means they'll penetrate protein. Man, I can't talk either. So in that, you know, obviously that membrane is water based, so it's protein. So the flavors are going to go right through. Salt's going to go right through. I mean, yeah, it's fine. It's paper thin.
When you're talking about cooking a rib to total tenderness, in a restaurant setting, do you jam a thermopen in there? Are you looking for readings, or is it like, what's the gauge for you? Is it just time because you've done it so long?
It's all by feel.
Yeah.
So, at Franklin, we'll do about 3.5 hours unwrapped, meat side up, get them looking pretty, about 2 shades darker than you want them to be later. Sauce them, flip them over, let them hang out for a minute, and then we wrap them up in foil with a little bit of sauce, a little bit of vinegar sauce, and then wrap them super duper tight. And we never see them again until they get unwrapped on the cutting board during lunch in front of guests. So that means you can't poke a hole in the foil because you'll lose the juices. You'll, compromise the whole package. So it's all by feel. And then you also pull it when you have about like half a rib left to get tender, because you have to, of course, figure out like your carryover and all that stuff. But I will also say,
yes.
Sorry, you got me talking about ribs now.
Please.
The trick to cooking it that way, where you never unwrap them and like check, because you don't want to unwrap them because they'll steam out and stuff like that. You just kind of worked really hard to get all the juice and the liquid and stuff in that bag. But the trick is that you don't want to render really any fat or anything or dry out the meat until after you wrap. Once you wrap it, you can push the temps because you cook the fat out of the ribs and it mixes with the sauce. So it creates more of a confit kind of texture.
So are you putting the ribs back on after you've tightly wrapped them in foil? Do they see the cooker again for a certain amount of time?
Yep. They go right back on, and they probably stay on there for an hour and a half, something like that.
Okay, and then you have like some type of a holding tank to hold the ribs, and that's where they would remain tightly wrapped until they hit the slicing board.
Yeah, so we use warming cabinets. And you'll pull them off a little bit earlier, in the summertime, a little bit later in the wintertime, let them rest, let them hang out. And when they're ready to go, we just throw them on sheet trays and put them on a speed rack. And then from there, we wheel them into cabinet warmers for service.
Why not indulge me? And we're going way off topic, of course, because that's what we do here on this show. Here's what I did for my big rib cook. And I hate to tell you what kind of a cooker I used, but I had both a Traeger Timberline, just because it has some decent capacity. I don't usually cook 8 racks of ribs, but we had a party going on that was a surprise birthday party for me that I didn't know about, and that's why I was cooking. And then I used my Primo XL, so 2 completely different flavor profiles, but I tried to do the same process. So we had the cooker running at 275, both of them. And then do my rub procedure. They go in, so meat side up, run it for about 3 hours, and then into foil with some butter, a little bit of honey, some brown sugar, the normal bullshit that you see. And then a non-measured amount of water, just a little bit to kind of soup everything up, I guess. And then as tight as I can, double wrap and foil back on the cooker for about an hour. And then I only unwrap one because I try and get racks the same, as close as I can. And I only unwrap one. If that one is where I want it, I assume that everything else is kind of in the general neighborhood. And then I'll hold them in a 150-degree oven, anywhere between 20 minutes to an hour or so after the fact, as we're starting to bring them out, slice them one by one. Is that a generally good operating process, or do you see some holes?
Yeah, I have some comments.
Yes, please.
The first one is next time, or if we ever get to hang out again, around ribs, let me show you how to take a towel and actually feel your way across a rack of ribs and know exactly when it's done, so you don't actually have to open them up. There's a really specific feel, and I describe it in the books, but it's one of the hardest things for me to train somebody at the restaurant on how to do this, because you just can't tell somebody the words and have them figure it out. Like, okay, here, touch this, feel this. What do you think? And then like how to kind of collect the data. So I think that's pretty valuable to kind of like get the muscle memory a little bit. It's hard when you're not doing it like every day, of course. If you're doing it every weekend or maybe every other month or something like that, of course it's different. But there's a certain set of like criteria that you're kind of using your fingers for. And I think that would be helpful. And that was really the only thing. Did you let him rest before you put him in the oven?
So they went from the cooker onto a sheet pan. I walked them in to the house. I let a couple sit out because I knew those were like my best racks that I wanted to showcase, and then everything else went into the 150-degree oven. Some of them sat in there for an extra 15 minutes. Some of them sat in there for an hour as we were working through them. So,
yeah, I think, for me and ribs, I usually like to let them kind of just rest for maybe 30 minutes to an hour or so, depending on the weather, because I think they'll like reabsorb a lot of those flavors and a lot of the flavors that you like on a good barbecue brisket or a rack of ribs or pork butt or something like that. A lot of that happens actually in the carryover.
And in the foil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally, for sure.
My mind is telling me they're going to be meat mush if I let them rest even longer. I'm afraid I'm usually taking them. So a lot of these racks, I felt like if I would have been a little bristly in their handling, they might have kind of fallen apart. So I felt like I was right to the end of where I could still slice them, but they weren't, shit you could just pull the bones right out.
Yeah. So, ironically enough, if you let rack of ribs rest and get cold, the muscles will actually tighten back up, and you could fake out an overcooked rib a little bit if it's not piping hot. But if you pop it right in the oven, it's going to keep cooking. So, enhancing the mushiness, of course.
Got it.
Tomato. There's 1,000 ways to cook ribs.
And if I leave the membrane on, maybe I get away with being able to hold them a little more. Right. All right, so what we've learned tonight is 96% of us need to chill the fuck out and leave the membrane on, and that's what we're going to do. I'll report back next time we're on.
Yeah, I think we should cook ribs, too.
Yeah, all right.
Sounds like we need to cook ribs.
I know. I could teach you a few things. You could teach me a few things.
I bet you could.
It's a give and take. So I noticed that Franklin BBQ is on vacation for a week or so. How do you decide on this particular portion of time to be on vacation?
Well, we do it about the same time every year, and it's usually the tail end of July, getting into August. It's flipping hot, and it's usually our slowest week of the year because it's so flipping hot. So, yeah, we do it. And, when you cook 24 hours a day at a restaurant, 6.5 days a week, a lot of maintenance issues pop up. So that kind of really, it's a closure for maintenance, but it's also a closure to let the staff go off and have vacations and do all that kind of stuff.
So the people that are going to be making the pilgrimage, or as I would call them, the barbecue pilgrimagers, know if I'm going to Austin, yours is the place most people want to go. They know around this time then that they should either go a week before or a week after.
We usually have a couple people that show up and the old Marty Moose has to tell them that we're closed to clean and repair. But if you look on the internet or look on social media stuff, we put the dates out there of like 6 or 8 months in advance. I mean, it's like we really get it out there. But every year we do get some people that show up and are really angry that Wally World is closed.
I want to talk about food trucks. I've done a couple things I call podumentaries over the last couple of years where a couple of my barbecue associates have decided to go into business, and instead of opening a traditional brick and mortar restaurant, they're going to do a food truck or a food trailer for whatever reason. There's a guy out in Utah that's been doing a bang up job, but I also had a guy this past podumentary out in El Paso that was opening a food truck, and he just recently closed for good after closing an initial time. A couple months later decides he's closed for good. If I were to come to you and say, Aaron, I want to open a barbecue food truck, what do you tell me as far as things I need to take into consideration to have at least a puncher's chance of success?
Yeah, and a lot of people actually do ask. We get a lot of people that email questions and, like, hey, I cashed on my 401k. I really want to do this. Hey, I'm going to retire. I want to do this. I'm so passionate about barbecue. I love it so much. And usually, like obviously we started off in a food trailer as well, back in 2009. And that's how Franklin BBQ started for sure. But I think it's realistic or it's smart to be realistic about how much work you're really going to have to put into it. And that goes with any restaurants. I mean, restaurants, food trailers, food trucks, whatever, are so hard. You work your tail off. There's very little money and, long hours. It's hard to get people to eat there. All the stuff. Like, restaurants are really, really tough. It's one of the toughest ways to make a living. But then you throw barbecue into the mix where you don't get composed dishes. You don't get, all the stuff that you would get to put on a plate, at a normal restaurant. You're just selling expensive protein. And, it sucks because you can't really charge what the barbecue's worth. If people were charging what it really would equate to for a normal restaurant, you'd be charging like $60, $70 or so a pound. Like, it's pretty ridiculous. But you've got this meat that you pay a premium for. It cooks down, by about a third of what you paid for. And then you give people pickles, you give people onions, you give out the bread, you give out the sauce, you give out the butcher paper. All that stuff really stacks up, right? So knowing how the economics work in a restaurant is the first thing to kind of be like, well, does this make sense? Do I really feel super passionate about this? Am I going to spend a lot of money that maybe I'm going to regret later? Like, you don't want to be too risky, of course. And I think that's the biggest thing. You don't want to have such a huge liability for the money stuff, but also you got to think about how much of your life it's going to take. If you have kids and you want to go to baseball games and you want to have weekends free and you want to sleep in on a Saturday and you want to take a vacation, a barbecue truck's probably not going to work out for you, because Saturday's game day and it takes a lot of work to make that happen. And it takes overnighters and it takes all this stuff. So I think thinking about that in a really unbiased way, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is take the emotion out of it and how much you really love something, says the guy that started a barbecue truck because he loved it so much. But just try to be realistic about how hard it's really going to be. And I think that would probably mitigate the chance that you have a failure later on if you kind of know. And one thing that I did before we opened up Franklin BBQ is I went and got as many barbecue jobs as I could. And I didn't get paid at some of them. I just hung around. But I really wanted to work 60, 70 hours a week and just work myself, just to the bone and, see if I still liked it, if I was still really excited about barbecue. And it turns out I very much was. So that was kind of like the green light for Franklin BBQ to exist. But in hindsight, I didn't realize how many hours it was really going to be. When you get to your first 76-hour workday, you kind of find yourself thinking, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? And then, when food costs are at 80%, you kind of think, oh my God, what did I get myself into? And realizing that Franklin BBQ is such a unicorn, it's just the most freakishly lucky and magnificent and special place there is. But not all of us are that lucky, and it takes a lot of luck and an insane amount of hard work. So I would say, for someone thinking about opening up a food trailer, don't spend your life savings. Go get a job, work at somebody else's food trailer for a while, and see if you really like it. And if you do still really like it, and you are still super passionate about cooking barbecue or anything else, go for it.
Appreciate the insight on that. A lot of people are going to get a lot of value out of that. Before I let you go this evening, I do want to ask you about how the pit building side of the business is going currently. The
pit building side of the business is going great.
Yeah.
We're building pits.
Are you selling them?
They're really awesome. What's that?
Are they being sold?
Well, that's what I was kind of setting it up for. But yeah, they're getting sold. Barbecue pits are doing good. We, post-COVID kind of times for cookers in general and barbecue stuff is pretty tough. Starting to turn around a little bit, but I think, we're doing pretty good. I'm super happy with them. We're building better pits than we've ever built. And, we're not pushing the same numbers that we were pushing like in COVID, obviously. Yeah. So it's kind of, the quality is kind of getting there, and we've had some time to go back and learn how to do this a little bit different and maybe adjust these welds. Super proud of them, though. They're chugging right along.
From a dealer's growth standpoint, are you at benchmark where you would like to see the brand and the number of dealers in the country?
Yep. Yep, I feel really good about the number of dealers we've gotten. They've all been handpicked for some very specific reasons. They fit us well. We've got some distribution overseas. We've kind of pushing that kind of stuff right now. We've
Nice.
do Pro Smoke in the UK out there, so we ship a couple shipping containers out there. And I'm really our dealer network. We're always sort of like, if somebody cool comes along that we really like, hey, you want to sell some Franklin pits? But we're not trying to get them just everywhere. We're not trying to saturate the market. We would just want really, like kind of like mom and pop, cool little spots.
I want to get your take on a menu item that the unfortunate late barbecue writer for the Post Express, or the Chuck Blount. You remember Chuck by chance? That name ring a bell? I'm not saying the name of the paper right, but he was, outside. There are other barbecue editors aside from Daniel Vaughn, if people listening can possibly believe it. But Chuck was a very good guy, a good friend of this show. He was really keen on seeing barbecue restaurants across Texas, because that's where he's covering, having smoked burgers on the menu. And it was, now I know probably some do, but he said, this is something that's going to be a game changer, and every place down here is going to have a smoked burger on the menu. What do you think about that?
I think they're great. They've been around for a really, really long time. They're super delicious. Leroy and Lewis is a place here in Austin that's does a really great burger that I like a lot. But it's really good for barbecue spots, because if you got extra meat, you're making sausage, you can grind it, make a burger. If you've got a way to cook it, it's easy to cook them in a firebox while you're cooking briskets and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know that like a barbecue restaurant would like be so successful with a burger. They're like, we're not doing barbecue anymore, we're a burger place now. I don't know if I could see that happening necessarily. But I do love a smoked burger. And if you do it right and don't overcook it on the smoker, you can get a lot of flavor in there.
Aaron Franklin joining us here on the show. We got way off topic on the rib stuff, but I certainly appreciate that, and I'm getting a lot of good instant chat on all the stuff they're going to be trying as we do our next rib cooks here. So, Aaron, appreciate the time as always, and let's do it again sooner than later.
Heck yeah. Good talking to you.
You too. Aaron Franklin right there. Well, gang, I hate to say it, but we are all going to be not taking off our membranes from now on, and that's a show mandate, if I can say that. So save yourself time in the prep process. No more removal of rib membranes, at least on the spare ribs. I'm not a baby back guy myself. We'll ask Bill Oakley if he likes baby backs or not. But I'm a spare rib guy, and I'm not doing it anymore. See, Joe Martinez was right. No more taking the membrane off of spare ribs. Hey, gang, are you tired of settling for mediocre grilling experiences? Well, it's time to step your game up.
Step your game up.
Bring the ultimate flavor and cooker to the backyard barbecues. Pits and Spits Charcoal Grills, offering the highest quality live fire cooking experience you can get in the market today. Using either wood or charcoal, their solid fuel grills produce those classic flavors you're looking for when you have the time to fire up the grill and cook for family and friends. With a large adjustable fuel tray, you can raise and lower the fire to control and fine-tune the heat. They're taking the very popular Santa Maria style grill. Check them out online, pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central Show. That's Pits and Spits, all spelled out with a double T on the Pits and the Spits. Use promo code Charcoal Central, all one word, Charcoal Central, for $150 off any charcoal grill that they're selling. Once again, it's pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central and promo code Charcoal Central to save $150 off any charcoal grill. We're back with the Bill Oakley. Stick around, we'll be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
And we thank Aaron Franklin for joining us last segment. This portion of the show being brought to you by the Fireboard Pulse. New wireless thermometer from Fireboard. Now, you can't just go out and get it. You have to be invited, so be on the lookout for invitations if you are a longtime Fireboard customer. Otherwise, check out the website for more information on it. See if you might be a purchaser down the line, fireboard.com, or call 816-945-2232 with questions. My next guest tonight, an accomplished fast food reviewer on social media, Instagram to be specific, doing those videos, 1 minute time limit. You can also find him right here on this show occasionally talking about fast food and other food items as well. We welcome back our pal Bill Oakley to the show. Hey, Bill.
Hello, Greg. Great to be back.
We have a YouTube poll question of the week, Bill, that we're asking everybody, including all guests. So we'll ask you, do you remove the membrane on spare ribs when you cook them? Yes or no?
No, I'm not even quite sure how to do that, or I think I've seen what the membrane is, and I think I better leave it on. I don't want to tamper with it. So that's my expertise in that area.
I feel so. I just had Aaron Franklin on, obviously a well-known barbecue guru, and I said, "Do you take them off?" He said, "Oh, hell no!" And I said, "Okay, well, if you're doing them in the backyard, maybe in the restaurant, I can see because you're doing 100 racks of ribs or whatever it is during the course of the day. But in the backyard, is it different?" He said, "Oh no, it doesn't matter. I'm just not doing it." He's listed out the reasons why, and I feel like I've somehow been lied to or led astray these last 18, 19 years of having to remove the membrane on a rack of ribs, whether it's baby back or spare ribs. I like spare ribs the most because they were like a flavor condom of sorts. But he said, no, absolutely not the case. And so, well, this would have been a great interview to have 2 weeks ago when I did an 8-rack spare rib cook, because I could have saved myself some time. But nevertheless, just know this. If you're going to do ribs, don't take the membrane off and you'll be much better for it, I guess.
I've never had any complaints, and I don't think I even knew what a membrane was, really. So, so far, so good.
Are you doing a food podcast, Bill?
I am not doing a food podcast yet. I appear on a number of food podcasts and food news programs and things like that from time to time. I'm also on the Food That Built America on the History Channel all the time. And I do have a podcast that will be coming out hopefully sometime soon regarding the history of In-N-Out Burger. But we're still kind of getting the business angle of that worked out.
So that's going to be a retrospective of sorts. Like, here's the history of it. And it's like a episode by episode building into where we are today.
Yeah, yes. Not only the history, but also the food. And it's kind of a deep dive into the whole organization from top to bottom, from 1948 to now. And it's one of the weirdest stories in the whole world of food. It's an incredible story. And I hope that we can get it out to the proper channels, provided the business thing works out.
Aren't you just doing a podcast because you're passionate about it and you want the information to get out here? I mean, that's why I do this. I don't do it because of the money. I have no business channels. Shame on me.
In this particular case, my partner and myself were actually paid money by a large corporation to do this podcast.
Really?
But then, like, everyone got fired and the corporation got all disbanded and whatever. And it's, this business is, how business is. So that's part of where this thing lies. It is. I don't own the rights to it, so I can't do anything with it at the moment.
So a company came to you and another guy, pitch you the idea and hire you, and then somewhere along the line it falls apart?
Well, it was actually kind of our idea. We were going to do it and we also kind of were developing a TV show that was based on In-N-Out Burger, and this was going to be part of like the sales package. And as it turns out, it's just kind of been stalled out due to all the business angles that have to be worked out. But believe me, when it comes out, it will be incredibly entertaining and very well worth the listen. The company spent a lot of money producing it, and I hope that they want to get that money back somehow.
Am I just a bit aloof because I'm not a West Coaster? Let me rephrase this. Do people on the West Coast, will they be more of an appreciator of this because of In-N-Out? Like, I'm in Cleveland. I don't know where the nearest In-N-Out might be. Maybe Texas, or somewhere even west of that?
Well, In-N-Out is part of In-N-Out is it's only been in Texas. It's only been in the West for a long time, but it's expanding. They actually just recently they've decided to open up a giant hub in Tennessee, which is
Hmm.
going to service like the South and the Midwest, and that's also covered in the podcast. So it is, to be honest, it has been a thing, the California thing for decades,
Yeah.
but now it is kind of gradually creeping across the country. It's in Texas, and it's going to be in the South in a few years.
Like tri-tip from the West Coast proliferating across to the East Coast. Now we're going to see In-N-Out. All right, so we'll look for that podcast whenever it makes its way to the daylight. In the meantime, you're still doing your thing, doing the reviews. I see you were at Tim Hortons for the first time, but you're not taking part in what I would normally do, which is coffee regular, 2 creams, 2 sugars, which I'm not a coffee connoisseur by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think there's any better restaurant coffee than coffee regular from Tim Hortons.
You go to Tim Hortons regularly? I never have been to one in my whole life.
No,
until this.
because I have to go down to Columbus, which is 2 hours and a half away from me to the south. That's the nearest one. Or I got to go about 2 hours directly east over towards Erie, Pennsylvania. There's no Tim Hortons at all in Cleveland, and they just started coming in here within the last 10 years or so.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. Tim Hortons is mainly known as a Canadian thing, and it's one of the biggest chains in all of Canada, and it's essentially their Dunkin' Donuts for people who don't who don't have never been there. And we don't have. I've certainly never been to one in my entire life. I've never seen one until I went to Canada last month, and all the Canadians were telling me, you got to go to Tim Hortons and we want you to try the pizzas. And I'm like, what? Okay, I knew that my leg was being pulled. Okay, I know that they're famous really for coffee and donuts, and that's pretty much the only thing. But like Dunkin' Donuts, they're constantly expanding the menu into other areas. And they just recently unveiled these pizzas, which are not very good. And I knew people were sending me to get the pizzas because they wanted to see me react to them. And that is what happened. The pizzas were it ranged from mediocre to bad, and that that's what I wanted. I knew it would make an entertaining video, or at least a moderately entertaining video, so that's why I went. And all I ever had at Tim Hortons was 4 pizzas and a Diet Coke. So
You didn't even get a
watch the
coffee
video on
when
my
you were
Instagram.
there?
No, I did not. I got a bottled Diet Coke. So that was the end of the story of my Tim Hortons visit. I did get I got a maple donut in the airport version of Tim Hortons on the way there, but it was not I didn't have the regular Tim Hortons experience. But that was my first visit, and I think it was a noteworthy one.
I wasn't going to ask you about Dunkin' Donuts, but since you broached the subject, I don't think there's any place that sells coffee and then associated breakfast foods that is worse than Dunkin' Donuts. Their wake-up wraps, their bacon snack. I mean, all that is ass or worse. What do you think?
I have only eaten there once in the past 30 years. We don't have them out here. And I think I ate at the one, I got a sandwich or something in either Penn Station or Grand Central Station in New York when I was there one time, and it was real it was unmemorable. So I can't really go into a deep dive on Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, my youngest especially is a huge wake-up wrap champion and supporter, but I've tried them, and I've tried a bunch of stuff through there just to see, because I was like, wow, this is bad. I wonder if everything else is bad, so I'm foolishly wasting money. And everything is worse than the next. And by the way, I don't know when they decided to take a shit on their quality of donut, but they are some of the worst donuts that I have had over the last 20 years, and they used to be the best. Like when the guy did the TV commercial with time to make the donuts, and he's in and he's out and he's in. I think they were really making them at that point, but at some point they started trucking them in. They're held in, I think, refrigerated coolers and just brought out to defrost. It's a sham.
The bigger that these chains get, the more they have to please Wall Street. And that always involves cutting costs and crapifying everything. And it's very rare that a company will continue to get bigger and everything will improve. Actually, that's one of the things about In-N-Out Burger that's interesting is it's still privately held by this incredibly strange family. And so it doesn't have to answer to Wall Street, which is one of the reasons why the food is consistently good there, except for the French fries.
2024 finds Bill in Chicago at the National Restaurant Association show. What are you doing there?
I love I went last year as well, and I love it. This is like I don't know how to describe it. I guess it's a Coachella for food people. Okay, it's like it's enormous. Okay, I'm able to get in as press. I'm sure you could get a press badge as well.
Well, should I
And
go?
and yes, you'll
Oh,
love it. And I mean, it's interesting. It's a huge combination. It's first of all, it's in McCormick Place in Chicago, which is enormous.
huge.
There's 3 halls, each filled to the brim with stuff, all sorts of things. Like first, there's maybe a third of it is like restaurant equipment, like the latest robotic grill or whatever. But then it's also like things that restaurants might want to use, like Coca-Cola or Heinz and Kraft mayonnaise and things like that. And then there's also just other things, everything related to restaurants from all around the world. There's a whole section of like Chinese food manufacturers, Italian food manufacturers, and there's free samples galore. Like it's delicious, it's incredible. You could fill up 6 times a day. And so basically, I just like to go there and I like to see what's available, what's new on the horizon, what new things Heinz is getting me to see, for example, trying out food. I got to try a Korean fast food chain that's going to be opening in Los Angeles, and for example, things like that. And I also got to meet a lot of people from some of my favorite foods, like several hot sauce brands that I've
Hmm.
loved for years, such as Zab's and Clark and Hopkins. I got to meet the people behind them, and maybe we'll do some sort of collaboration online in the near future.
Are
So
you
I
sad?
recommend it. You can go and the 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 bar for getting a press credential for this is not that high, and I think many of the people who listen to you and also you could easily get a press credential, and you go and you'll have a blast.
Anybody that wants to go to the show next year, it sounds like Bill's probably making plans to go there. So we should all get up there together. Chicago, only 5.5 to 6 hour drive for me, depending on traffic. So hop, skip, and a jump. If you want to go, just let me know, and I'll set you up as Barbecue Central Show executive producer title, and that'll help you get a media credential. And we never have to see each other if we don't want to, but if we all want to do a little meetup or something like that, we can meet in one of the many halls there and do that in 2025. So we'll put
And
that
believe
on
me,
the dock.
barbecuing equipment, barbecuing supplies, and that kind of thing is very well represented at this convention.
Bill, are you satisfied with the newly released $5 McDouble meal at McDonald's?
Yes, I think that's totally fine. I don't it's not composed of things that I would normally get. But I do think it is a pretty good deal. I mean,
Yeah.
from my recollection, it's either a double cheeseburger or a McChicken, fries, a 4 or 6 piece McNuggets, and a drink for $5. I think
Yep.
that's pretty good. Normally I don't get those items, but certainly for a budget conscious person, that's a great deal. Now, the thing about this is, remember what that is trying to get you into the store.
Yep.
If you go into McDonald's, they want you to drive to the store to get that and then order a $6, mochaccino type thing or whatever on top of it. So keep in mind that what it really is a thing to get you in the door and make you tack on other items, or bring your kids along and they're going to want ice cream and they're going to want McFlurries that are like $4.99 a piece. So you got to you got to watch your wallet when you go in the door.
What's your favorite McDonald's item?
It is the quarter pound. Okay, well, I don't want to take the whole show. I could spend an hour and a half talking about McDonald's, its
Oh,
shortcomings, and some of the things I like and don't like about it. Maybe we can have a whole special episode about that. Right now,
great.
and for the past 2 years, it has been the Quarter Pounder Deluxe. You'll recall that a few years ago, they switched to having the Quarter Pounders used to be frozen.
Yeah.
In 2018, they switched to having them be fresh beef, and there is an improvement, a noticeable improvement. The Quarter Pounder Deluxe is the one that is a quarter pounder with cheese, with lettuce, tomato, and mayonnaise. And I say that that's the best nationally available fast food burger there is. You can get it all, from sea to shining sea. Now, it's not as good as Culver's, which we don't have here.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say it's as good as maybe as In-N-Out either, but for the price and its easy availability, the Quarter Pounder Deluxe is the best fast food burger in America.
I don't know if it happened or if it was a nationwide rollout or not, but did you see that Arby's released potato cakes for a limited time?
I did see that, and I've never had the potato cakes, and I feel like I should try. I should. You mentioned this before, and that I feel like maybe I should drive out there and get some. All the Arby's are closing. Like every Arby's near me, it seems to be going out of business. And then they closed that famous one on Hollywood Boulevard, with the giant neon cowboy hat,
Yeah.
like last month too. And I have a serious concern that Arby's is closing up shop. Because I love Arby's. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I think that all their like I love that they have an unusual menu filled with all sorts of stuff that you don't get at other fast food places that's generally pretty good. And they got those sandwiches, the market fresh sandwiches. I
Mhm.
love the roast beef and cheddar. I love their crinkly fries and their curly fries. So like I feel bad that they seem to be closing up shop.
That has to be a West Coast thing because Arby's out here in the Midwest and East Coast thriving. I see new locations
Good.
being
Okay.
built
Well,
on the regular, so that just must be a pocket of location that is experiencing a little distress.
or maybe they're just the older locations that they're going to knock down and renovate. That could be it as well.
Bill, spoiler alert! If you get there before they recapture the potato cakes, it ain't that good. They're not that good. I
Okay.
mean, I was
Then
never
I'm
a
not going to
fan when
drive
they
all the
were
way
a
to the.
regular menu item. Now, that being said, and it's a divisive topic in the house, my wife, a huge potato cakes fan. In fact, when she saw they were coming back out, it was like, we got to get Arby's tonight because the potato cakes are back. And I'm like, well, they got rid of the piece of shit. Why are they bringing the piece of shit back? It's almost like when McDonald's brings back the McRib every year and
Yeah.
then they fish it out and then they take it back and they realize they had a great marketing ploy to pull on those chumps every year. So maybe this is what the potato pancakes turns into as years pass from now.
It could easily be, and I think that a lot of that has to do with like the distributor has a warehouse full of these things, and they're going to cut the price by 10% if you buy them now. And I'm sure that's how Burger King operates too.
You making money on the Instagram videos at this stage?
Well, I think I should say that I probably make almost $9 a month on the Instagram videos.
Really?
So not yeah, enough to go to Arby's and get some potato cakes. I'm not like Instagram is not a really great source of making money, and I think where to want to make money, I would probably go to YouTube and try it because YouTube is very good at monetization now, but still,
Yeah.
you're still going to have to get a million followers, which is far more than I have, to really make a living off that. But as far as Instagram goes, I like it because it's easy and it's fast. And I don't want to do 10-minute videos. I want to do 1 minute videos or minute and a half videos because I think the topic is, I feel like when I watch these ones on YouTube where they take 12 minutes to review the new burger, I don't need a 12-minute dive on it. I need a minute to telling me, is it good? What's it taste like? Is it worth getting? Boom. And that's what I try to do.
I thought there was money to be made on Instagram. Like when you find your niche, I don't think there's any question you found the audience that really digs what you're up to, and your subscribers or your subscriber count is saying that 41,000 and a half at last check. So that's up from the last time that we talked, where companies get in touch with you and they want to collaborate.
Yeah.
And so you make a deal. It's not through like views or anything like that. You can just command money.
Well, I hope to be doing that sometime in the near future. I mean, yes, ideally, I would get a call from Miracle Whip, for example, one of the products that everyone else hates that I love, Miracle Whip. And I
Oof.
wear a Miracle Whip t-shirt in all my videos, and I'd say, this review of Arby's brought to you by Miracle Whip, and they'd pay me a fortune to do
Yes.
that. So if anyone from Miracle Whip is watching, please, you know where to reach me, that below on Instagram. I will immediately prostitute myself and my channel to hype up Miracle Whip if you pay me the right fee.
What is
And
it
that goes for
about
other major brands too, and breweries. So come on, hit me
Bill
up.
Oakley is ready to whore out, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it certainly. I think I've waited long enough. I've paid my dues. It's time to get rich off this crap.
What is it about Miracle Whip that you actually like? Because aside from you, I've met no other human that voluntarily likes it. They're tricked into eating it usually.
Well, I've discovered over the years there's two things that make food social media go crazy. One of which is the debate over whether it's okay to put ketchup on hot dogs.
Yes.
The other of which is mayonnaise. Mayonnaise with its even just putting mayonnaise on anything. It seems like about 60% of people think mayonnaise is fine. 40% of people hate it with a passion. And amongst the people who hate it, they hate Miracle Whip more than anything. I would say only a tiny fraction of the audience of any group likes Miracle Whip, and I am among those people. I like that it's a little sweeter, and honestly, there's other brands of mayonnaise that come close, like have a little bit of sweetness, like Kraft mayonnaise does, and so does Blue Plate, which have just a slightly light, sweeter angle, which I like that in things, and it's also perfect on certain things. It's not good necessarily like on a sandwich where you want to taste the meat, but it is good in things like, I don't know, tuna salad or whatever, stuff like that. So
Hmm.
it has its place, and I always it raises my hackles when people start crapping on Miracle Whip. So anyway, they should be funding my Instagram. Is the point of this conversation?
Have your hackles be raised a little bit more. It's not mayo. It's salad dressing.
It's not. You know what is mayo? It's Miracle. It's the reason it's a miracle is it doesn't use any eggs, and because it was invented during the Depression. This is one of the things I learned on doing Food That Built America.
Yeah.
If I recall correctly, it was invented during the Depression when eggs were at a premium, and also they couldn't be egg products couldn't be stored that well because refrigeration was not commonplace. And Miracle Whip gave people kind of a mayonnaise type of spread that didn't require eggs or extensive refrigeration, and
Hmm.
that was why it took off and remained popular when a certain quarters to this day.
Could there ever be a collaboration between Bill Oakley and the snack daddy, Stefan Johnson?
Of course, I feel like we probably have a lot of crossover in terms of things we're interested in.
Do you know where he's from?
I don't, but I know I've seen Snack Diet online.
Cleveland. He's from
Hey,
Cleveland. Yeah. Do you know how good of friends we are?
how good of friends are you?
We're not any friends. I don't understand. We're right here.
Okay,
We're
well,
probably within 15 minutes of each other at the most. And I can't get this guy on the show to do a barbecue review or to talk about Cleveland food. But I guess when you hit over 1 million subscribers on all your platforms, you forget you came from the 216 like your pal Greg Rempe over here. And I'm sniffing hind teat for whatever reason. But if I could ever do it, as long as you're open to it, I'll make the connection if I can.
for sure, I'd be up for it. Absolutely.
Tell me about this barbecue event that's coming up in October.
All right, this is exciting because I've been one of the things that I want to do in my new career as a food influencer is have live events where people, ticketed events where people come and there's a menu that is made up or partially made up by me, and then I tell humorous stories, throughout the evening and whatever, and make it a generally amusing event. So I met when I was in Austin last year. I was introduced to Bill Dumas. I'm not sure if you know him or if he's been on this
Yep.
thing. He's the Sausage Sensei. Has he been on here?
Not as a
Okay.
guest, but
Well,
of course I
Bill-
know Bill. Yes.
He's the sausage sensei, and some say he is the most well-regarded sausage maker in the nation, especially in the Texas barbecue scene. He was in residence at Brotherton's, and he has since moved to Schultz Pizza Room in Seguin. So Bill and I have become friends, and we decided to collaborate on a ticketed dinner that we're going to have at Schultz Pit Room outside of San Antonio in October. And the menu, we kind of collaborated on the menu, which is going to be sausages and sausage dishes and sausage containing dishes that are inspired by various American regional specialties.
Oh.
So, for instance, you might have a Chicago style hot dog sausage, or St. Louis toasted ravioli sausage, or things like that. It won't all be sausages. Some of the dishes will just be like, here's a pizza with sausage on it. But every one of the dishes will be, for instance, a Hawaiian loco moco sausage or something like that. A variety of dishes from around the country, regional specialties made into sausage or using sausage. And then there'll also be paired cocktails and also entertainment, such as it is provided by myself, being the raconteur of the evening about these items, telling you about the history of the Cuban sandwich or the Atlanta lemon pepper wings as we have the sausage, that type of thing. It should be fun.
Where do we get tickets?
We haven't gotten the tickets yet, but it will be if you follow either Bill, who's Sausage Sensei, or myself, that Bill Oakley on Instagram or X, formerly Twitter. We will be hyping the crap out of it, so you will know when the date is, and there will be linked to tickets and so forth. I hope that all your listeners can make it to Seguin, and it will be a memorable evening for sure. Late October.
Outside of that event in Seguin, which I can't believe anybody really knows about, but there's a barbecue place called Burnt Bean Barbecue in Seguin, Texas. If you have a moment to go there, I'll make an introduction to the pitmaster, and it's easily rated some of the best barbecue in Texas and across the country, and it's in Seguin.
I would love to go there, and I would appreciate the introduction. Thank you.
All right. We'll see how that happens. Bill Oakley is here, and if you're going to be or if you want to be in Seguin, Texas for his first ever event, then make sure that you're following him on Instagram at @ThatBillOakley. 41,500 of you are already doing that. Bill, appreciate you coming back on the show. I will do my part to make sure this is a better recurrence as far as elapsed time since the last one, and always appreciate the insight. Thanks so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Greg.
You got it. Bill Oakley right there. So let's go ahead and get caught up on the clock here. We're already past the first hour, which means abridged show open. In fact, our second hour guest is chilling out in the green room already. So just chill out. We'll be there in a second. What do we love about ceramic cookers? We love that they're fuel efficient, yes. We love that you can achieve low and slow temperatures for traditional barbecue meats, oh yes. We also love that you can get rip-roaring hot for the traditional grilling of steaks and other thin cuts. But what's missing? The ability to do true two-zone cooking. Two-zone cooking is very important to both professional and backyard cooks. It's the best way to manage a fire, cook with confidence. However, getting a two-zone fire in a round ceramic cooker isn't very realistic. You know why, because it's round. Enter Primo in the game-changing oval design. The shape gives you the ability to execute a two-zone setup that you desire. It also gives you the other ceramic grill benefits as well. When you break it down, there's more than 60 different ways to configure the Primo cooker, so you're only limited by your imagination. They also have all the accessories that you want, only sold through dealers, so find one near you by visiting primogrill.com, use the dealer locator, and then visit the dealer in person, touch and feel all the ovals, and then buy the one that best fits your need. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram for further inspiration or to make your buying purchase. primogrill.com. Made right here in America. Let's wrap the first hour. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Continuing to produce incredibly mediocre content in an exceptionally professional way. You're listening and watching the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
And we thank Bill Oakley for joining us last segment at @ThatBillOakley on Instagram. No website that I know about. He's got the Sausage Fest coming up in Seguin. Go to that event, and the day before, make sure Burnt Bean Barbecue is open. And then stop in there and get some barbecue that's going to blow your face off. All right, let's go ahead and get rid of this. All right, we're all set here. That was the first hour. We are racing to the second hour. We'll get you up to date on the latest Famous Dave's All-Star Barbecue Series, a little bit of best of, and then we'll fold right into our pal Doug from Rogue Cooker. You're listening and watching the Barbecue Central Show right here on the Barbecue Central Network. Stick around, be right back.
Happy to have you aboard here for the really big barbecue show.
We cook because we have to, and we grill because we want to.
Hit me!
Fine, how's it going?
You have a great show. I'm a big fan.
Boing.
So what seems to be the problem here? This man looks like he's dead, and he's in the crackle.
Charbono! It's all about the charbono, dude!
Succulent fish. What?
He ate 2 feet or wiener.
But listen, Lavernius, shut your face.
I'm shaking like a dog shit peach seeds.
We have top men working on it right now. Top men.
And just like that, we're in the second hour, Barbecue Central show, where we talk about all the important stuff. You know it. Barbecue and grilling related stuff. Non-barbecue and grilling related stuff. Why not? It's all fun. It's all fair game. Doug Scheiding is still set to come on this show in about 5 minutes from now. We say good evening to those of you watching tonight through our video streaming platform partners. You can go to facebook.com/BBQ Central Show or twitter.com/BBQ Central Show, or you can take it in on YouTube, which is youtube.com/@BBQ Central Show. We have a YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking everybody. Do you remove the membrane off of your rack of spare ribs? And 92% of you now are saying yes, you do. But as we learned in the first interview segment in the first hour with Pitmaster Deluxe Aaron Franklin, we should not be doing that at all. We should be leaving it on. That emboldened Smokin' Joe's barbecue pit to say, I told you to leave it on last week. So we'll see how the rest of the show plays out here this evening. Coming up on the best moments of the Barbecue Central show in 10 minutes or less this coming Friday, episode 344 from a July 3rd, 2013 show. This week, John features me. And back in 2013, I brought to you, the audience, a medical first that bring... So weird. I brought to you a medical first, the first ever proctophilia diagnosis. Do any of you know what a proctophilia is? Don't Google it. Just answer yes or no. And if you answer yes, you have to tell me immediately what it is, but don't search it. Be honest. Are you someone that suffers from it? If you are, please email me immediately so you can be on the show next week and we can talk about it. If you aren't aware of what it is, I'm not going to spoil it for you like I normally would in this type of a situation. Just make sure that you grab the show on Friday. Get yourself up to speed on this issue that evidently is still sweeping the nation, even in 2024. Sickos. You can subscribe to the show by visiting thebbqcentralshow.com/subscribe, which is also the way you want to be able to subscribe to the feed and get the best of show, because you can only get it through the podcast feed. Don't forget, if you want to hear a guest or segment again that's been lost in the show archives, email our pal John Solberg, Jon, at thebbqcentralshow.com, and he will do his best to meet your expectation. The Famous Dave's All-Star Barbecue Series rolled into Taylor, Michigan this past weekend, and winning it, Chicken ain't easy. Can I get a huh, yeah?
Hey, everybody, can I trouble you for a huh, yeah?
Reserve Grand Champion, PB&J's Barbecue. Both Chicken Ain't Easy and PB&J's Barbecue have now earned spots into the 2024 World Food Championships Barbecue Division. We congratulate them and wish them good luck in November when that actually takes place in Indianapolis, Indiana. The next Famous Dave's All-Star Barbecue Series event is this coming Saturday, August 3rd, if you can believe it. Already in August. Where's it going? Going back to Joe Martinez, a.k.a. Martine Martinez, El Paso, Texas. 2 events this year in the Famous Dave's All-Star Barbecue Series. This event, however, is full. There are some revamped contests as far as a number of contests that have opening spots left. So, Minnetonka, Minnesota, as of 2 days ago, 1 spot left. On August 10th, a week after that, Sioux City, Iowa, 3 spots left, August 17th. And then, of course, the Columbia, Maryland one, which is the last event of the series. Still 1 spot left. You can find out more past results and the remaining schedule of future events by visiting worldfoodchampionships.com/allstars. And we're caught up. How about that? Very good. I didn't think we were going to be able to do it, but by Jove, we've done it. We're back on the clock. The clock! We just had Aaron Franklin on in the first hour. So why not talk about his brand of barbecue pits, which A, he is building, and B, they are selling. What you have with the Franklin pit, a deeply thought out and refined version of the old propane style cooker that Aaron built for Franklin BBQ. Stylistically, it reflects the kind of bare bones, industrial, handmade aesthetic that he loves, as in the patina, and the way the build allows you to see the welds and the craftsmanship. The Franklin pit is primarily made of quarter-inch thick American-made steel. That's strong. Anything that sees heat is engineered to be incredibly solid. Should last at least a century or more if cared for properly. The thickness of that steel guarantees professional-grade heat retention, which is a critical component to making great barbecue. Every Franklin pit unique unto itself, which includes their own natural markings and its own badge number. Franklin pits can be found at barbecue specialty stores in select regions of the country. If you, the listener, are an owner of such a store, you wish to become a certified Franklin dealer, please visit franklinbbqpits.com and fill out a dealer form, or just email me. I'll put you in touch with the right folks. If you, the listener, want to own a Franklin barbecue pit, but you live in a part of the country that doesn't have a certified Franklin dealer nearby, you can visit franklinbbqpits.com and purchase a pit. Franklin Pits will ship a Franklin pit right to your driveway. Either way. Or what if you are the owner of the store, you want to become a certified Franklin dealer, and you want to buy an offset pit, bring a couple in, buy one of your own, it's a win-win. Probably get a discount. Either way, franklinbbqpits.com. That's franklinbbqpits.com. Our pal Doug Scheiding is up next. Stick around.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
This portion of the show being brought to you by Pit Barrel Cooker, the most unbelievable outdoor cooking device on the planet, currently available in 3 sizes with a host of accessories. Doesn't matter if you're a beginner or a professional, it's a cooker you want to add to the arsenal. pitbarrelcooker.com is the website. Just make sure you tell them the Barbecue Central Show sent you. My first guest in the second hour is someone you hear pitch in on the show the 4th Tuesday of every month in the second hour during the Embedded Correspondence segment. He is the longest running embedded correspondent. He's also a very accomplished competition cook and a contractor for Traeger grills. You've seen him pull solo segments on this show talking about such things as social media growth and other things. And tonight we welcome him back as we continue a interview about his budding rub business. Our pal Doug Scheiding joining us here on the show. Doug, YouTube poll question of the week, and I'm wondering if you're going to give me a different answer a week later. Are you going to start removing the membrane off the back of your spare ribs, yes or no?
I'm going to continue removing the membrane off of my spare ribs.
All right. 92% of you are saying that you will remove the membrane off of your spare ribs. I don't know what else to say other than Aaron Franklin was on the show in the first hour, and he said neither in the commercial setting nor in his backyard is he wasting his time taking off the membrane of spare ribs, which he prefers. And also bolstered his argument by saying that the membrane is water soluble. So this nonsense of being a flavor condom that Meathead used to call it back in the day is nonsense. You get flavor fully. You don't have to worry about it. So quit wasting time and just don't take it off. Is that not enough to sway you?
No.
It's Aaron Franklin. It's not, Joe Shit the Rag Man.
He knows a little bit about barbecue, maybe a hell of a lot, but and more than he's forgotten more than perhaps that I know. But anyway, I'm going to continue to take it off. I actually think I am convinced now that I'm always an A/B test cook. That the next time I make some ribs, I'm going to have some A and B, and one will be on, one will be off, and we'll kind of see about it. So, when you go to restaurants, and especially if it's cooked on an offset, that membrane tends to kind of crisp up, I think. And that's actually not a bad texture when you're eating a rib at a restaurant, etc. But if you're in competition, and the competition guys, you just don't want that. That could be off-putting to somebody.
Sure.
And that's just something you can't take. So I just get in the habit of it. And because I'm always cooking for competition, it's just something I do. But on beef ribs now, I definitely leave it on beef ribs. Definitely.
So my house is very into what they like and what they don't like, and they've only ever eaten ribs sans membrane, whether it be baby back or spare ribs. So I'm not telling them, unless they're watching right now, which I highly doubt. I'm not telling them that I'm not pulling the membrane off the ribs anymore, and see if anybody even notices, because this could be a great tragedy of my life, knowing I could have just left those membranes on all of this time. When I go to the restaurant, when I went to Truth Barbecue for the first time, early last year, I flipped the back over. I saw the membrane on there, and I just, whoop, it just flips right off, and didn't even think twice about it. Kept eating the ribs, no big deal. But I don't know if they're that schooled on it, or what they would know from a visible sign if a membrane is on the back or not. But I'm going to roll the dice and take the risk. Is that smart?
Yeah, I think it's a great plan and a great idea. I think this is fantastic.
Right.
And I'm almost willing to bet, because do you cook your ribs kind of KCBS bite through sort of thing?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
very tender, very tender.
In Texas. Oh, very tender. Okay,
yeah,
so it's more of a little bit closer to fall off the bone.
Yeah, a little closer to that.
Okay. Then they may notice it. I think if you didn't do quite the level of going to fall off the bone, I think it might be less noticeable.
Doug, we did an opening segment on the topic that we continue talking about here this evening, back at the very beginning of March, if you can remember that. And here we are.
March 12th.
March 12th, that's right. Almost 5 months later, here we are. And we aren't announcing that your business venture is closing. In fact, it sounds like the opposite, that it's a budding sensation. So bring us up to speed from a production and a distribution and a sales standpoint since March.
Yeah, so in March is when my rubs went in full production. And of course, we went, talked about Home Depot coming to Old World Spice and getting them to do a pre-production and that kind of stuff. So that was all good, except it pissed a few people off. But March, full production. Towards the end of the month, it actually was supposed to be end of February, and they ran out. There was an ingredient that they were waiting on, et cetera. So in April, I went to Shields, talked to them about it. So hopefully I can get into Shields, because I was doing that Shields University up there. And I know that it was presented to two major retailers. And one of which, in addition to Home Depot, it looks very positive to get in 2025. I was the only one, as far as I know, in the Old World Spice, the Pitmaster program, to get into a major retailer, let alone have the major retailer come and ask them to produce it within the first year. Normally, it kind of takes off a little slowly, and so this has actually been kind of a fast track, and nothing I anticipated, and it's just kind of hard to believe. So am I making millions of dollars? No, I'm no Malcolm Reed or anything like that, but it's picking up at it's at a pretty good pace. I couldn't imagine that it would have sold this well.
Is Home Depot the major retailer that you're talking about here?
No. In addition to Home Depot, there's two other major retailers.
Who?
One of them is huh?
Who?
Yeah. I am hoping. Yeah. He knows me through the Ace Hardware. How about Ace Hardware?
Oh, all right. Yep. Good.
So yeah, I'm hoping to get into Ace. So I think that looks positive there. in May, I went back to Home Depot and headline, did 2 demos on Friday and Saturday. Was started the day off at noon both days, and that
You're talking
went really
about Memphis
well.
in May. You didn't say that, but that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, Memphis in May. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, Memphis in May. So yeah, not Smoke Slam, but Memphis in May. So did that. So that was the second year. So I was glad that I got asked to come back, and it was a lot of fun. So this year I had all 3 of my rubs, so I used them in. One day I did brisket, and the other day I did beef ribs. So June I established a relationship. One of the things I didn't plan well is because in March it was released, and then it was only available on Barbecue Spot. It was like, whoa, just like the next day it was up, and I'm like, oh crap, I need to get a couple other outlets, so because you don't drink wine, but when you go to a winery,
I have.
and maybe I said this before. Yeah, okay. Well, do you go visit wineries?
Yeah, of course.
When you go to
there's
the winery,
really good ones
the
just
winery.
east.
Perfect. So when you go there, the wine is always most expensive at the winery, right? And it's the same way when you go to the Barbecue Spot website, that's the most expensive place because they don't want to undercut any of their resellers.
Yeah.
And establish pricing. So they're even a little more expensive than Amazon, if you can believe. But anyway, so I didn't do a good job in that, and so I spent a week or 2 getting a few places. So I'm on barbecueproshop.com, national website, selling it, and then also here in Texas, I got with Texas Star Grill, and so that got me a relationship with Texas Star Grill in Houston. Rick Martin, who and
good guy.
Corey, his son, and Michelle, and I actually had them out at the Houston Rodeo, and met Rick and Michelle face to face at the Wild Game Crew in the tent and stuff. And I talked to him about the rubs, and we kind of, said we'd get back together, and we never did. And then I contacted him and said, hey, I've got these rubs. Would you be interested? And he's like, yeah, let's get him in the store. And so then in June, they asked me to come down. I was going to Galveston, and he said, oh yeah, you might as well come in and do a class. And I said, okay. So each, 30 some people in one of their stores, they rearranged everything. And then each of the attendees got all 3 rubs. And so it was pretty good. It was a 2-hour class, actually. I talk a lot, so it's, it went over to 2.5 hours, but he's saying, but hey, when I got there, it was actually fun. When I got there, one of my buddies said, hey, I showed up at 1 for the 5 o'clock class. And he was like, if Doug will cook a full prime rib roast, I'll pay for it. And it was an